A guided tour of the Forbidden City in a country British Prime Ministers have avoided for 8 years. And Keir Starmer's shift in tone is a marked one, now describing relations with China as in a good, strong place. His diplomats talking about a consistent long-term partnership. The Prime Minister's pitch to the British people that it will make them richer.
And we made some really good progress on tariffs for whisky, on visa-free travel to China, and on information exchange and cooperation on irregular migration, focusing particularly on small boats and engine parts. So a very good constructive meeting with real outcomes, and that's very much in our national interest.
Keir Starmer isn't the first European leader to beat a path to the Great Hall of the People. Last month it was the French president, while Germany's chancellor is expected in a few weeks. The differences of opinion remain huge on human rights, on Chinese support for Russia in Ukraine. But in an unstable world with an unpredictable American president, President Xi is presenting himself as a reliable beacon of stability.
As long as we take a broad perspective, rise above differences and respect each other, then we will prove ourselves able to stand the test of history.
The warmth surrounding the Prime Minister in this Chinese restaurant was genuine. The UK is the world's 6th biggest economy, and it's now cozying up to the 2nd biggest, with pharmaceuticals giant AstraZeneca announcing a $15 billion investment here. Mr. Starmer has secured 30-day visa-free trips to China for British citizens, but not the release of Jimmy Lai, the pro-democracy tycoon and UK citizen detained for more than 5 years. Though he did raise the case. The Chinese have vowed to reunite China and Taiwan, which is central to their vision of the new world order. So Keir Starmer's 3-day reset in diplomatic relations on economic grounds can only go so far. I'm joined now by Steve Tsang, the director of the China Institute at the School of African and Oriental Studies. Steve, I wondered what the headline from this trip is for you. Is it the investment by AstraZeneca in China? Is it the visa-free travel for British citizens? What do you think is the most significant thing to come out of this trip so far?
Well, I hope that the significant things will come out later, that there is something much more substantial than what the Prime Minister has so far been able to announce. But it is good to see some progress in terms of the investment, also in terms of the visa-free entry. But that doesn't address whether people on Chinese government's blacklist will be able to take advantage of the visa-free entry.
So what are you hoping is going to be more substantial that we haven't seen yet?
Well, I hope that there will be some seriously significant business deals that will seriously improve the UK's economy, including potentially the transfer of some of China's cutting-edge technologies in the green sector, for example. I am not holding my breath on that.
And how is it being reported in the Chinese media? I mean, is this as significant a trip for the Chinese as it is for the British? Or is this yet another former colonial power queuing up in Beijing to do business with the world's 2nd biggest economy?
The Chinese are quite positive about the visit. I think from when the Prime Minister landed, they were clearly projecting a good, positive image of the visit. They clearly want the visit to be presented as a success. I think what we often overlook is that for the Chinese, it is not so much the business deals with the UK that matters. It is the engagement of the UK, and through that engagement, how China can get the so-called democratic West to divide among ourselves.
That sounds like a very big ask, Steve. I mean, the fact of the matter is that even though President Xi is presenting himself as a beacon of stability when you have a very unpredictable American president, the British can't really be peeled off, can they, from their relationship with the Americans, and they certainly can't tilt towards China, can they?
Well, not in terms of security, national security side. I think we will be very much with the Americans and our European allies. But let's not forget that it was less than 10 years ago when the Chinese were able to engage with the UK and got the UK's to join the AIIB, the Asian Investment and Infrastructure Bank. And that fundamentally changed the international image of the AIIB. Other Western democracies and developed economies joined AIIB. The United States did not. And that fundamentally changed the AIIB in terms of its standing in the world, which was a big win for China. They will remember that.
But the elephant in the room is Taiwan, isn't it? Because we saw in the New Year's speech by the Chinese president, he was vowing to reunite China with Taiwan. And if that happens, and if it happens by force, then all these diplomatic overtures of the last few days could end up not going very far.
And that may well be true, but the Chinese will be certainly hoping to work with the UK and other European countries to make it much more difficult in a Taiwan crisis for the United States to gain the support of Europeans, including UK countries, to support the American position over Taiwan. So they would want to present that Taiwan is a domestic issue for which the Americans are interfering, and it does not affect the UK or other European countries. But of course, when that moment comes, things may look rather different from London or various European capitals.
It's been reported that the British don't want to upset President Trump with this visit, President Trump threatening to impose more tariffs, of course. But Mr. Trump is himself going to China in the spring. So perhaps this instability that everyone is talking about at the moment, perhaps there is actually more going on behind the scenes where people are trying to have more in common than not.
Well, President Trump is very unpredictable, and sometimes it is how he personally feels about a subject. I don't think a Starmer deal with Xi Jinping on UK-China economic relationship will necessarily trigger a negative, strong reaction from the White House.
And finally, Jimmy Lai, the British citizen, Hong Kong Chinese businessman, jailed for allegedly colluding with foreign forces. I mean, his case was raised by Keir Starmer, but the brutal reality is that human rights are taking a bit of a back seat at the moment, aren't they?
I think the Prime Minister would be in a pretty untenable position if he did not raise issues of human rights with the Chinese in the visit. But if he had put the human rights issue, including Jimmy Lai, on the front burner, I don't think we would be hearing any of the other deals that we have been hearing. The incarceration of Jimmy Lai, regrettably, would have come from the very top in China, and that is not going to change. Much as I respect Jimmy Lai, I don't think any British intervention is going to get him released.
Professor Steve Tsang, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you.